Hey, everybody. So, one of the things that I was required to do when I went through the adversary program in F-18s and I went to Top Gun school to become an adversary and do all these things, one of my ancillary jobs was to be the safety officer for the squadron. And so they sent me to safety school. Now, aviation safety school is down in Pensacola, Florida, and this was an interesting school, man. They showed you crashed airplanes and the way that metal buckles, and you had to look at like crashed airplane parts and explain how they broke, and they taught you how to look at these things and understand whether those parts broke airborne or whether they broke on impact or whether it was fire damage or whether it was impact damage and all these things, because when an airplane crashes they do these unbelievably extensive investigations to figure out how and why that crash occurred, because when you're dealing with $80 million airplanes, the folks that pay for those things, that's you and I, John Q. taxpayer, we want to know why it happened, right? Well, one of the byproducts of that school, at aviation safety school, was they taught you about cracks. And that sounds kind of ridiculous, but what they taught you was to look for cracks in airframe structures. So cracks around horizontal stabilizers or vertical stabilizers or wing roots or the flap extensions or the leading edge flap extensions, right? Those kind of things. To look for cracks on the brackets that held the wingtip mounting brackets for the wingtip missiles and things like that. To look for cracks when you're doing examinations of airplanes, because tiny little hairline cracks, what tiny little hairline cracks do is they create a break in the integrity of the aircraft. And so when the aircraft is at rest, those tiny little cracks don't mean much. But under extreme heavy G loading and extreme loading of the aircraft, such as in high G maneuvers or when landing on an aircraft carrier or getting shot off the end of an aircraft carrier on a catapult, under those high load maneuvers, those tiny little cracks that have threatened the integrity of the aircraft become the beginning of massive breaks that cause catastrophic failures within those aircraft and ultimately the loss of $80 million in potentially human life. And so these tiny little insignificant little cracks, some of them that long, hairline, barely see them. And if they get painted over, you might not see them at all. But these tiny little hairline cracks cause breaks in the integrity of the aircraft, the actual airframe. Those tiny little cracks in the integrity of the airframe can lead to catastrophic failure of the entire aircraft and potentially loss of human life. Now, I want you to think about that for a second, because the exact same thing applies to you and I in our lives. See, if we have tiny little hairline cracks in our integrity, tiny little hairline cracks, like I'm a good person, I cheat on my taxes just a little bit, just a little bit. I fool around just a little bit, right? I lie when it doesn't hurt anybody, right? I tell people what they need to hear, not what they, I tell people what they want to hear, not what's necessarily true. These tiny little cracks in the integrity of your person at rest are not a big deal. But under heavy loads can cause catastrophic failures of your relationships, your finances, your business, your spirituality, all of those things, and can cause the loss of your life as you know it. Are you following me on this? Tiny little cracks in your integrity, when placed under heavy stress loading, such as troubles in your marriage, or extreme financial hardship, or being ostracized from a church organization or something like this, some major catastrophic event, the death of a family member or a child, or God forbid, a spouse or a parent, right? Something like this. Some sort of a very heavy, very stressful load on that relationship or on that agreement or on that bond. If there's tiny little cracks in the integrity, the very heavy load can now cause catastrophic failure and ultimate loss of the relationship or the business venture or the business or the financial stability of your life or whatever the case might be. My point is simply this, that sometimes I think we talk about integrity somewhat flippantly, right? Like, oh yeah, I got integrity. Integrity, man, it's like pregnant. You can't be a little bit pregnant. You either have integrity or you don't. And if you have tiny little cracks in your integrity, it can cause you big problems later. So here's my recommendation. Take a thorough pre-flight, all right? Take a big-time, thorough pre-flight examination of your life in your personal life, your business life, your financial life, your spiritual life, and look for the cracks. Because we all have them. We all have them. Some of our cracks are bigger than others. Some people have more cracks than others, but we've all got them because no one's perfect. We all fall short of the glory. We all know that. That's been in Scripture for 3,000 years. So we know that we're all going to fall short, but here's what we can all do. We can look for the cracks and go to work on fixing those so that a tiny little crack, when placed under heavy loads of pressure, which will happen to us all, so it doesn't cause catastrophic failure of whatever structure is being held up, whether it's our relationships or whether it's our business or our finances. Does this make sense? So go to work on your cracks. And this is what Mr. Jim Rohn said when he said, work harder on yourself than you do on your business. Become a millionaire not for the money it will bring you, but for who you will need to become in order to get there. That's what he meant. Fill in the cracks and watch everything in your life explode. Go to work, guys. Make it a great week.